This is a Hope 1032 podcast.
Welcome to She Wasn't Born Yesterday, the pod that fearlessly chats about all things affecting us ladies who are 40 plus fabulous.
Well, and the guys that want to know what we think.
Well, them too. I'm Janet Evans, advertising creative.
And I'm Jenny Woodhouse, semi-retired social worker.
In other words, you're busier than ever. We're J&J and we're super thrilled you're with us for She Wasn't Born Yesterday. Well, gorgeous, I feel like we needed to do a lot of pivoting during COVID. I think that's when we started using that word. We need to pivot. What do you think?
Well, I thought pivot was a weed. Oh, but it's...
Really?
Oh, no, that's privet.
I have no idea what you're talking about. But,
Okay.
you know, the only time I've ever really pivoted was when my daughter-in-law, who is a professional ballerina,
Oh, that kind of pivot.
actually taught me and my son she tried to do a bit of a pivot, which I think is called a pirouette, for those in the know, ballet term, which is a small pirouette.
Yes.
I think, something like that. But
Yes.
And we tried to pivot and we fell flat on our faces.
That's how that worked out.
Actually, back into the sofa. So I have real respect for people who pivot like pros, and our next guest today has done some serious pivoting in her life. In fact, the first time we met, which was over 15 years ago when we were fabulous and incredibly young, we first met in an ad agency called Ogilvy, which some of you listening to this might have heard of, probably. And she's been through a lot. But she is here with us today, and she is the 40-plus, very fabulous Fleur Marks, mindset coach and leadership trainer. Welcome to She Wasn't Born Yesterday.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Gorgeous.
Fleur.
So good to see you again after however many years. Back
I think
in
it's
the
been
day.
40-plus years.
Yes.
Oh, gorgeous. Well, take us back to that time. It was about 2010 or 11.
Yes.
What was going on for you?
I was pushing myself. I thought I was Wonder Woman. I was doing the juggle, young kids, big job, running from meeting to meeting, trying to be perfect and amazing at everything I touched. And really just constantly pushing myself to deliver. You know, busy was my badge. And what I probably, if I tuned into myself at the time, what I probably knew but didn't want to own up to was that I was completely and utterly exhausted.
Wow.
And I was kind of empty, like I was achieving, and on the outside I looked like I was the definition of success. As you may remember, I had a fabulous wardrobe too.
Yes, I do remember.
And I just thought I had it all, but actually what I was noticing, probably in denial, but sort of knew it was there, was that I was burning out faster than you could say, Flynn.
Burnout.
Or burnout. And I was exhausted, but different exhausted. I'd go on holiday and I'd never feel like I was quite well or back to me. And my body was actually shouting, and I was choosing to ignore all the signs. If I look back and think about that time, I think I was pretending and pushing through and doing a deal with myself that if I just keep going or get to the next thing, that I'll take a real break then, and when I rest, I'll feel better. And it wasn't good, although on the outside it looked pretty amazing.
I remember you looked pretty amazing and still do.
Why,
you look
thank
amazing.
you. Thank you.
Yourself to the doctor, or what happened?
Well, actually, I went on I lost a bet with a friend when I took the job at Ogilvy in Sydney, and it was to run a fancy dress marathon through 52 vineyards in Bordeaux.
Sounds like a plan.
The only kind of marathon I would ever run, by the way. And so I flew over for this race, but because I've been so busy, I hadn't probably done enough training, let's be honest. And I was actually at about the 22K mark in my fancy dress outfit, drinking wine, so, you know, living my best life. But I started to cough, and I thought, and although I was drinking red wine, I started to notice it wasn't red wine, it was blood. And I had this cough. And so I just, because I'm a finisher, I did the full marathon.
As you do.
And got over the finish line, got given my bottle of wine, which is, you know, a great present at the end of the thing. And I literally collapsed. I ended up going straight to bed, feeling unwell, ended up sort of just thinking I'd push myself, ran home to deliver all of my campaigns that I had to do because I was like, I've got to get back. Ignoring this cough that was persistent. And I got to the point where I couldn't get through a sentence and I was sort of annoying people in meetings because I kept coughing. And the CEO's assistant at the time said, look, Fleur, I think we should take you up to the emergency up the road at the end of today, just up the road from the Ogilvy offices. I think you need to get that checked out. And I was like, I'm too busy. I can go after 7 when I've done all my things. I'll be fine. It's nothing. Right. But I had noticed this taste of blood was constant. And we went up there, got the x-rays and the scans, and my lungs lit up like a Christmas tree. And they said, look, you've either got tuberculosis, lymphoma, or the disease that I have, or the autoimmune disease I have, which is sarcoidosis. And so I went home, thought I'd get a second opinion, pushed through a bit more. And then it got to the point I really couldn't get through a sentence. And by the time I then presented at St. Vincent's Hospital, I had to have open chest surgery because the lymph nodes in my passageways here were blocking, were so inflamed, and they had to take them out to formally diagnose what was really going on because they weren't sure if it was tuberculosis or sarcoid. And so I ended up then getting properly diagnosed and having to stop work. And that's when I spoke to the wonderful Janet, I've got to take some time out.
Yeah, just a little bit of time out.
How does one get sarcoidosis?
Well, it's normally very dark-skinned people or very white-skinned people. And I'm neither of those. They don't know the known cause and there's no known cure. It's quite rare, so there's not a lot of research being done on it. They have found that if you have a tattoo, it can trigger the disease, but I have no tattoos. It's just an unknown. It was unfortunate. Did I work myself to my autoimmune disease? I would say absolutely. Was that the cause? Don't know. But was it a symptom of what ended up being, the fight of my life? Definitely. I think working myself sick, stress, disease, right? So, so I think definitely it was that got me.
Is it a disease that just affects the lungs?
No, it's multi-organ. So I have it I've got stage 4, which is multi-organ. So in my lungs, heart, brain, eyes, and lymph nodes. And lymph nodes are anywhere in your body, so it can show up in any part of me. So multi-organ.
And what happened then? So after you discovered this, what did you do? Because I heard that on top of that, you were also diagnosed with something else.
Yes.
And you actually went to the ad agency's Christmas lunch, knowing you'd get those test results that afternoon, and we're guessing you didn't get too much into the Chrissy spirit that day. Tell us what results came through.
Yeah, so I spent, post that diagnosis, pretty much about 8 years I had 23 rounds of chemo, 118 actually, autoimmune infusions, a ton of steroids to get the disease under control. And then at this particular Christmas, which was just 6 years ago, they'd found a lump on my breast and had done a biopsy, and we had a Christmas lunch, and I sat there holding my breath thinking, I've got to go to the doctors after this. And sure enough, it was breast cancer. So on top of fighting for 8 years, then I got the cancer diagnosis as well, which don't know if that's a result of because my immunity got suppressed. And so what happens when that happens, I don't want any immunity because it's autoimmune disease where the immune system attacks itself. So the less immunity I have, so that allowed cancer to creep in.
Goodness me.
You were still working full time and you had kids.
I'd gone back to work full time. I thought I got my life back on track, had my disease under control. My children had everyone had normalised again after worrying that because when I got further down the sarcoid diagnosis with the brain disease part, they were a bit worried I wouldn't make it. And so I seemed to get things under control and regulate. And so everyone sort of took a bit of a breath. And then I found out I had the cancer. And so then I had to tell the kids, look, this journey's not over. There's another, and it was it was 3 days. I had to have surgery 3 days before Christmas. So it was a bit of a downer to our Christmas, to be fair. But I think for the kids, even though my autoimmune is more life-threatening, I think the word cancer for children is a big word to hear. The fear comes up more readily, I think.
Yeah. And is sarcoidosis something you'll always live with?
Always have. I never get cured from it. It just goes in and out of flares or control.
Yeah.
And so when it's under control, it means I can function relatively well. And then when it flares up, it basically debilitates me or could take my life, given it's in my brain now. So,
And what's the treatment for it to keep it under control?
well, I've had too much chemo. I had 23 rounds. You can't have any more. Well, you shouldn't really have any more. No, I got drug-induced hepatitis from so much medicine.
Okay.
So I stopped treatment about 4 years ago. I made a conscious choice because there is no cure. It's just control. I'm still on steroids and I'm on brain blockers, nerve blockers, but I chose not to continue immunotherapy because I was just drug walking through my life and the symptoms were getting greater than the cause. So I just decided to take a pause and get back into my own body. And post the breast cancer, I kind of made that decision to not continue treatment, much to my doctor's despair.
Wow.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, it's just so much for one person to go through.
I'm stronger than I ever thought I would be, let me say that.
Yes.
And I think we all are. I think I had no idea I was this strong. Yet, my will to live is stronger.
Yes. And when did you were in advertising, which is an incredibly stressful industry, but when did you kind of come to that conclusion, look, this is not good for me, I'm going to pivot, I'm going to change direction, I'm going to do something different?
Yeah, I was running Sibling, which was a dedicated integrated agency for Westfield, who I'm still working with as clients, but in a different format. And I was the head of the agency. And when I had to step out and take more treatment, I asked myself, is this really the responsible thing to do as the leader? It was hard for my team to watch me go through treatment. It was hard for the business to navigate, having their most senior person in and out with treatment. And for me, having to show up not quite well enough and perform at a very high level. So I made a decision that the most responsible and best thing I could do, I had to keep working because we need to keep a roof over our house. I also wanted to make sure that other leaders didn't end up like me. And what I was noticing at the time in the communications industry and the advertising industry was that leading well came at the cost as such a personal sacrifice that you had to give up all of yourself to lead in a senior role. And I thought there's got to be a better way. And with my journey, I'd learnt so much that I wanted to help others not end up there. And if I could help them with their mindset and that taking care of yourself isn't selfish, that learning how to navigate the demands on you and the noise and the juggle of all the roles we have to play in life, that actually there's a better way if you put yourself first and take care of you and know what truly matters, and then you're more able to be of service as a leader because you're self-assured, but also you've got a full cup. And so I really pivoted then into leadership development to help others figure it out. I did well-being and leadership development, but now to me it's all one, because I think if your mindset as a leader is in a good place, you're a much better leader with the skills on top of that. Whereas if your mind is in the right place, you can't really lead well. So
yeah, that's really
so I pivoted.
interesting.
I retrained as a coach and ran all the development and wellbeing programs at WPP. So my boss was very kind to me at the time. He said, "You be the carrot, I'll be the stick around the revenue, and I'll be the one who takes care of them and helps them show up and be their best." And that was the deal we kind of made. And he let me set up the training school and then also just deliver programs this was before COVID, where well-being wasn't a word at corporate. And what really stood out to me was the silent suffering that all of us have. We all have stuff that we've got to deal with. And so how do you navigate life and do that as well as show up and be a generous leader to others? So it was sort of from there that my beginning of my legacy of what I wanted to leave with, knowing that my life here is shorter than, I didn't know when I was going to go, and I'm still here. So it's sort of kind of weird saying this out loud. But at the time I wanted to make sure I left a lasting impact in the industry.
That's incredible.
It is. And so you retrained as a coach. Where did you train?
I did the wellbeing. I can't remember the name of the company, but it was I did wellbeing coaching first, and that's focused a lot more into addiction. So if you can help a smoker give up that habit, or a gambler, or, kind of all the things that can impact your wellbeing. And I'm a workaholic. I'm addicted to work, so I started there, and then kind of sort of evolved from there. And now I coach more CEOs, ECDs, creative directors, or founders of startups.
Yeah, because it's really interesting, that concept of, if you can't care for people unless you care for yourself. But as a leader, the pressure on you and the multi-dimensional stress about, having to produce results for the company, but then nurturing and leading each and every individual is just a very unique kind of situation, I imagine.
Yes. And I like to do big groups or, I do the individual coaching, but I actually like to do development programs where the more impact I can have with all the different levels of leaders, starting with my senior leaders first. My daughter, when she was about 12, said to me, "Mum, you have to be selfful to be selfless." And I think most leaders wouldn't really understand that mindset shift. What I experienced, even when I was running Sibling, whilst I was sick, I started to practice some of the stuff. And I just had so much more to give if I filled my cup. If I'd taken care of myself or done the most important thing on my list for the day before I showed up to meetings, before I started to lead others, then I just had more to give. And it was like this weird flip that I'd never experienced because I'd always given all of myself out, me last. And so a lot of leaders out there right now are under so much pressure. They don't have capacity or space to even think about how they're showing up as a leader, let alone how to take care of themselves. So often for me, I'm that voice in a room who nudges them to wake up to what matters, and how am I going to do this? How am I going to sustain this? Because most leaders think high performance is, working crazy hours, going above and beyond, giving all of yourself, delivering beyond. And actually, it's about creating impact and doing the right things. Less is more, and doing it in a way that you can keep up, and you can enjoy it rather than just survive it. It's sort of such a different way of thinking as a leader.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Also, there's that perception that, if you're a leader, and you're a high-performing person, you're also running marathons and you've got 7 kids and you've got, you're doing this and that and leading this charity.
Overachiever.
Yes.
What does a normal coaching session look like, a one-on-one coaching session?
Good question. Well, I do a program of work. The first coaching session is normally around what's shaped you as a leader. That will start with your childhood. So are there any pivotal moments or people that have shaped you in your childhood? And then your first job, and then your current, where you are now. And looking at, what made you the leader that you are today, who shaped you. And often that can be our parents, or it can be a key person like a school teacher. Might have set us up to think about what great leadership looks like, or not so great leadership in some cases. And so I really get them to think about what's shaped them thus far in their journey and made them who they are, because it's those influences that you learn through osmosis. But actually, when you're triggered or when tough moments come in, those are probably the first voices that come up, or the learned behaviours that you will call upon, especially in tough moments. So we normally talk about that, but we often have a set of goals that we're trying to achieve. And normally a structure will be around figuring out where they're at, thinking about what behaviour they want to change. So any coaching conversation is about moving them forward based on what we've agreed as a plan as to the leader they want to be. And often it will be looking at their purpose first, what really motivates and drives them, and what's the kind of meaning making they want to have as a leader. And so we'll make sure we really get clear on that first, and then part of their behaviours that set them up, so the principles, the way in which they act. Because it's nice to have a purpose in your mind, but if you don't deliver on it or think how you're going to actually make that happen. And so we often talk about what are the signals you're giving your team in terms of behaviours and actions to demonstrate what matters to them, to you, to the team, to the company. And so we kind of shape around behaviour mainly. And then hopefully in that 90 minutes, we'll have an aha moment, and then we'll close out with what's landed. And then I will stress test whether they're prepared to make the change or the shift based on what we've talked about. And then I hold them to account.
That sounds like the fun bit. But how does someone know what behaviours they're showing their team, for example? Like they might be doing a lot of things just unconsciously, right?
Feedback. So I get them to constantly check in. There's often like 3 questions. What's working? How are you finding me as a leader? How am I showing up? What's working and what are you missing from me as a leader? Or what can I do to help you better? So asking really good open questions, getting the feedback on, I'm working on this part of my leadership journey, and I get them to try and share what they're working on to shift so that their team can support them. And so then they've got to go back and say, well, how did I I do in that? How are you seeing any evidence of this from me? So they get that feedback, and it's brave to ask for feedback from your team. And they will normally get it if asked well. And another question I have is, what's something that I do that really annoys you? Is always a good feedback question for a leader to know what's happening, how they're showing up. So, I don't know if that answers your question, Jack.
Bugs them.
Indeed. I'm thinking back to you running across the field, so I'm having trouble getting the thought out of my head. And I'm wondering, at that time of your life, would you have been open to someone saying to you, I think you need a coach?
Good question. I think I felt very alone, and I think I would have loved to know that I had someone in my corner who sees me for me and who could help call out the stuff that's a bit of my blind spots. I mean, I've always had a therapist, and she's been on my journey before I've got sick and is still in my life now, helping guide me. And she was the one who really encouraged me to shift and pivot into this new being a leadership development trainer and coach. So I had her in my corner as more of a therapist, because a lot of the work around navigating death and thinking that you're going to die is big. And it would have been nice to have had someone from a career point of view help guide me on what, is it worth it? Really showing up and pushing through, you've just had chemo and you're showing up a week later, is there a better way? And I've always just showed up. That's part of my DNA from my father, is just show up no matter what. And probably that no matter what was probably where I needed a coach to go, there's kind of a line, So I would have loved it. I think I was speaking to a CEO this morning who rang me for some guidance, and it's really lonely when you get senior. I mean, I recommend that all of my coaching clients have a therapist, a coach, and a mentor, because they all bring different dimensions, and they're people, or even to set up your own personal board of directors, which I have. And, I've got my best friend who's like my growing up person. She used to run a bank, and she's like the adult, and I'm the bit more playful, and she sort of keeps me grounded. I have my old boss I have my coach, I have my therapist, and I have a couple of other friends who are really wise, who get me. And I think they're not all in paid roles with me. So I feel like that colourful mix in my personal board of directors really allows me to stay on path and not get caught into my workaholism or I better go harder, faster, better because I haven't got much time. Is sort of the other foot on my back, constantly.
So you've developed that like a brains trust.
Yeah, exactly.
You've developed that since getting sick with sarcoidosis.
I did, yes.
Right.
How much time did you spend in bed, possibly mulling all of these things over the last 14 years?
I would say I spent, out of 14 years, I would say I've spent 4 years, probably, maybe longer. The first year I got sick, I didn't really get up for the year. So bed more at home, stuck there. And I learnt to work from bed. I learnt to be productive in bed because my brain is too busy. I've got to kind of, especially on steroids, you need to do something with your brain. And it's boring being sick. There's only so many, TV shows that can keep you mentally entertained. So I found using, I built websites and things in bed. I catalogued my entire wardrobe in bed.
Well, that took 2 years.
That's right.
So, was that the time when you realised, okay, this is my system, it's entirely crashed, I'd better turn my life around and start doing the things that I wish that I'd had as I was developing as a leader?
I think it took me a couple of years of denial. I kept thinking I was going to get better and hoping that the next treatment would turn the corner. And then when I was told that I wouldn't really ever get better, that's when I had to practice something. I don't know if you've heard of radical acceptance. And that's probably where I had to sit with the grief of if this is as good as it gets, I need to accept that I'm not going to be the best mum I always wanted to be. I'm not going to accept. I had to let go of my career ambition or all the things that I had defined as success, and I had to redefine what success really meant to me. And I think, I read the book, The 5 Regrets of the Dying at the time as well. And I think I'd been living a life of expectation. I think I'd always wanted to be a pleaser, make others happy. And so when I sat down, my therapist gave me a question, what if this is it, what do I really want from my life? What's my will to live? And if I'm honest, I drew blanks. I had no idea because I'd lived a life of other people's expectations. I didn't really know what I wanted, and I felt it was a bit indulgent to think that way. And so that was when I started to redefine what really mattered. And for me, it was, being the mum I could. Like, there was an example of during chemo, I would get up every morning early to make the school lunches. And someone said to me, why don't you just write the note to your kids that goes in the lunchbox, and, don't worry about the lunchboxes, it's just the note that matters. And, being present to them rather than trying to be this thing I couldn't be. And so I had to let go of a lot of stuff. I had to sit with that grief. I had to accept that I am in a sick body for the rest of my life, and that also I didn't want it to own me. I didn't want it to be me. So I really had to stay true to me and not let the disease, or I didn't want to become the patient. And I've seen so many people in the hospital over the years who have fallen into that trap, and they become the patient. And once that happens, hope starts to disappear for many who are sick. And so I just got really clear on what really mattered. And I started to own who I was and really embrace me and find self-compassion and self-love, which sounds very cliched in that. But actually, I truly stopped worrying about all this efforting and just started being enough, and found comfort in knowing that I was this crazy wild person who wanted to wear sequins every day, and who cares, right? And not to worry so much about all the things or trying to be someone I actually couldn't be, and just to really do me, and to accept that when I got stuck in bed, it is what it is. And what can I do to be most effective in that moment rather than all the things ahead? Or, we don't, as a family, still don't really live beyond the month. We don't think, I'm starting to let a couple months out creep in, but we don't plan, because it was just devastating when we'd plan a nice family holiday, I'd get sick, so we couldn't go, or just things. So I just started being more present and tuning in to what I needed and what mattered, and letting go of trying to achieve, really, and just get clear on, what if I'm going to be here for this time, what can I do with that, and how can I make it matter?
And what was the effect on your family, like from the beginning? It would have been, I'm sure, devastating, but
yes,
how has that changed over the years?
It was my daughter's birthday this weekend, so she's 24, just been in Melbourne celebrating, and my son turns 21 next month.
Awesome.
When I first got sick, my son was a young little one, so he didn't sleep most of his childhood. He was worried he'd wake up and find a dead mum. And so
poor little guy.
He's had sleep problems and still does as a grown man. He sleeps about 4-ish hours a day, just his anxiety. Both of them are in therapy, of course.
Of course.
I think what it's made both of them is quite resilient and wise. So when COVID hit them, it was like, meh, this is nothing compared to what we've had to deal with. I think in my daughter's case, she's very intuitive and very wise beyond her years. And I think she took on the responsibility of me a lot. So she, I really want her to loosen up and enjoy. She's getting there now, living her best life in Melbourne. But I think that responsibility piece, and with my son, I think he is actually studying science. He's studying biotech. He's trying to find a cure for my disease.
Oh, wow.
So he's doing that in Japanese. So he's really trying to, he knows that in my lifetime that may not be a reality, but he's trying to, he really understands that. He really got into science and understanding my disease, and he knows it better than I ever will. But also what that lit a fire in him was that there's so many incurable diseases out there, and with biotech that cures may come. May not be in my lifetime, but they're definitely coming. So he's really got a purpose around trying to find, through research to help others, I think. So that sort of lit that fire for him.
Have you ever had that sort of terrible thing where you think, I really need to make it up to my family? because
Yes,
I took
guilt.
so much
Absolute.
away. Yeah, guilt. Yeah.
When I see them feel triggered, or like when something happens, when the breast cancer part came along, that was hard because I just didn't want them to have another thing to worry. It was right at a critical part of their schooling. And, but I think as the four of us are deeply connected, like we to get like as a connection of a whole family. I think that's the one thing I'm very proud that we've managed to work on very closely, because my daughter's brain ability, she couldn't even process what was happening at those ages. Brain's not formed enough to really understand. And so we've actually gone more into supporting them now because it's come up as grown people. It's been more bubbled up now that I'm better, not well, but better. That sort of allowed space for them to heal. And so for me, that's like, feel guilty and terrible. I mean, it's out of my control, right? This is a disease. It's not me that did it. But I think what I can do is help them know that they're never alone and that I'm there for them always, no matter what happens. And also, it means things like birthdays that we had in the weekend, those things we celebrate hard and well because we just don't know. And I think that's taught them that life is precious and you just don't know what's around the corner, and that to every moment, that we're together is special, really. And it's to celebrate all the good bits as well as the tough bits.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think a lot of those emotions, like, those feelings of guilt, and also even in leadership, that women leaders are a lot different in terms of how they lead people and the things that they take on emotionally about those people?
Yes.
Is that what you've discovered?
Absolutely. So I run a women in leadership program, which there are some core insights that are unique to women than to men as leaders. In Australia, I think it's 75% of women are still carrying the domestic duties at home. Yeah. As well as running their big roles. And so that has a significant impact on how they're constantly juggling these roles and having to, they're guilty when they're at home, they're guilty when they're at work. So how to navigate and that sense of self is what gets lost, and having the confidence or the certainty within to go, here's a boundary, this is my boundaries and this is what I need to do for this to work for me. So I think that often we feel, as pleasers, perfectionists, givers, that we don't know how to communicate our needs. And so I think a lot of the women's programs I do around self-certainty, but also around being able to communicate what matters and why, and feeling okay, how to say no without feeling guilty, or how to go, I can do this, but I can't do that, and this is why, with context, so that then they feel they've got that space and capacity to do them, but also not end up being this empty, at the end of the week, it's a blur and they're just empty. So
do you think there are particular industries where women find it harder to be in leadership roles than other industries?
I don't know, but I think the juggle and struggle is incredibly real. I feel that, industry-wise, those that are perhaps more male-dominated, where there's probably more male roles, not necessarily industry. But I think where there isn't that sense of diversity and belonging, whether you're they or a female or whatever, that if there isn't that sense of, we accept you as you are and what you bring, and that you're a whole person outside of work. I think that's less about industry, more about the company and what matters to them will, I think, impact whether you can say you're leaving at 5 to pick up the kids without feeling guilty versus them shoving you out the door to go and get your kids because we know that matters to you, or holidays. Don't feel bad on your holiday, totally take the break. Regardless of male, female, by the way. I think men are...
So it's around the culture.
Yeah, I think it's around the culture. And I think there's a lot of suffering and silence for men as well around having to be in these roles.
Yeah. And gorgeous, how long have you been now running your Women in Leadership or high impact leadership programs? And what sort of feedback have you had from the people who've been involved in the programs? I'd love to know.
Feedback has been transformative, practical. Like a lot of people go, I can actually apply this today. Like when I will get home, I'm going to practice this, thing, whatever it is. I think permission giving as well, perspective taking, allowing people just sometimes it's not so much what I'm teaching them, it's just that space to step back from the busy and the noise and being transactional and actually go, how do I want to do this? I don't think leaders are thinking about how they're showing up. So, and also just allowing them to understand the difference between, you know, where am I delivering impact and value? Doesn't mean where am I doing everything and how am I doing more? It's sort of just changing the languaging and the mindset stuff is where the programs have had the most impact, and even simple things like how to say no or how to have a courageous conversation or how to ask for what you need. Those things are like, to me, my DNA now, but to many, they've never really had those skills taught to them, or even how to delegate well, so they've got more space to do what they need to. So often it's quite simple stuff, but actually it's deeper inner work. It's work around what's in the way. What's my inner critic? You know, getting to have a relationship with that, the bossy, you know, cat bitch that sits inside their brain that's telling them to go harder, faster, better. You know, how do I have a relationship with her and tell her to shut up when I need her to? You know, how do I reframe some of my inner critic or my narrative or the stories I keep telling myself? And these will often be repeat patterns of behavior at work. Doesn't matter what the role is, it'll keep showing up for you. And that's where the work, so some of that deeper work, that's where the transformation happens. And then it's some of the practical skills then of how do I implement this once I understand who I am and what matters, and then how do I actually shape the life I want, or the work life, or be the leader I want to be around that. So
wow. So do you ever look back and think, actually, this is combining all of the things that I've experienced and all of the things that I know, and I'm taking them all into one, and I'm helping other people. How does that make you feel?
Oh, amazing. Like, I think last year I had a moment where I could just see the transformations happening in room after room.
Oh, that's
and
wonderful.
I could feel that, like, some of it just came out of, like, some of it felt, I know it's a bit woo-woo, but it just felt like felt so effortless to me. I am now, I feel really in the place that I'm meant to be in life, which is kind of cool. And then I decided out of that, because I've tested this methodology now multiple times. I know it works. I trust it. I feel I've got it. Like, I feel like I've unlocked something, like a little blueprint for leaders, I guess. And then, so now I'm writing my book called The Overachiever Reset. So I'm putting it because I want to take my impact bigger and help others. I just want to help my long, arduous road of efforting and
I love
working
that
to
word
myself
that you
to
use.
death.
Editing.
How do I help others not, you know, understand? Because a lot of it's so simple and accessible, and I feel like while I'm here and well enough, that I would love others to experience or figure out a better way for them. Their way might be totally different to mine, but there's some real anchored kind of things that I know, because most people who get sick like me end up being in the waiting room of, like, I've been in the waiting room of death for, let's say, the better part of 14 years now. And most people get sick and get better, or they get sick and die. And unusually I've been in this waiting room, right? And so in that time, I've had time to accept, to navigate what was happening to me. You know, a lot of people who get sick don't even have that opportunity. They're still in denial when they go, or they get better, so they completely forget the lessons of it. And so I felt to get my book down is, and I do keynotes that, you know, make a room break or people quit their jobs at the end of it. No, but I think that's great if they do. But, you know, it just allows people to really wake them up to what's important.
Yeah.
This is short. You know, you get 4,000 weeks in your life, and how are you using them? Are they a blur, or are they? And so, but also if you're struggling, or an overachiever who battles with that ambition and drive, yet knows that there's a better way but don't know how to get there. This is that's where my story and my book and what I'm doing in Room is totally,
Wow.
it's
And
just
so
a dream.
do you think the joy of the work that you're experiencing has then a positive impact on your health?
Undoubtedly. Well, probably, if I'm honest, I didn't really know what contentment felt like. And, you know, because I'm constantly was striving and trying to prove and effort and be good enough. And so I didn't really ever have the sense of, I guess, it wasn't even, it's not joy. It's just this inner peace and contentment and knowing. And I think that's what the last 5 years of work have really opened in me. And so therefore, again, I can be more of service to others. Like I did
There
this.
you are, being self-sacrificial again.
Yeah.
It's all about you.
But it's
What can you get out of it?
With less efforting.
Oh, yeah, less efforting.
Less efforting, doing it
Less
less,
blur,
working
more
less.
fleur.
Yeah, less hard. But also, I think it fills my cup just seeing people in room like have those little light bulb moments and you see, it's just, I don't know, it fills me just, and also teaching something, you constantly reminding yourself of what your teacher, like, be the best. Yeah, you can be the best teacher. Yeah, the best teachers keep training because you've got to keep learning the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a gift and a joy. And any day I'm standing in front of a room helping others as leaders that do this, it's a delight. It's just so cool.
So are there any more pivots in store for you, gorgeous?
Oh, look, I'm thinking global, international.
Go for it.
While I
global
can
pivot.
travel.
I love it.
That's why I want to do my book, so I can elevate. I'd love to take, to me it's more about impact. So while I can, so I'm hoping that my book will sort of elevate my ability to reach more people. But actually just to enjoy the ride is my pivot now, really. We moved to
Sounds like a good pivot.
Byron. I'm, working less, enjoying more. I think just celebrating the life that I have now is probably the pivot point for me next, is just to go, okay, if I can sort of master it to work even less and still enjoy life and for the same money, then I think I'm going to be happy with that.
It sounds like a plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't that a goal for all of us?
Well, gorgeous. If people want to get in touch with you, want to do one of your leadership training programs, a team building day, resilience and best self masterclass, all of which you're highly qualified to lead, how do they get in touch with you?
My website's Fleur Marks, FleurMarks.com.au, or they can just send me an email, which is Fleur, FLEUR @fleurmarks.com.au.
Simple.
And just reach out on LinkedIn or Instagram, Fleur J Marks there, or on LinkedIn.
Get someone else to answer those emails so that you don't have to do too.
Right. I answer all my own emails and
leadership.
Do all my own content.
Fair enough. How do we find your book when it comes out?
Yeah.
I've got a little wait list on my website, so you can sign up on the wait list there.
Yes.
And then it'll be launched. I don't know how it's going to be rolled out yet, or exactly when the publishing date is. So it's with the publishers now. So we're just waiting to figure that all out. But it will be hopefully this year.
Awesome.
And then I'll be on a book tour thingy.
Awesome. And are you going to do a sequel that's Underachievers? I'll definitely buy that one.
You are so much of an overachiever. No.
All right.
Maybe I will do. I really always wanted to do a sick mum book or sick parent book.
Great
I think
idea.
there's nothing out there for
Yes,
people trying to navigate that journey, and those of us who aren't fortunate enough to not work and have to keep working. I think there's something later on maybe around that, which I like to do with my children. Actually, all of us have it, because I think even how to cope with a sick parent would be a cool book for my children to write.
That sounds amazing, because you've got those three perspectives, haven't you? Yes. Yours, their, hers and his.
Yes, And my husband's being a carer was interesting as well, right? It's very different when you're not the patient, yet you've got to keep everything rolling.
Awesome.
Indeed.
Oh, gorgeous. It's been absolutely inspirational. We have taken some copious notes and we feel like we can just lead our way into the week, do stuff, but not too much.
Yes.
That's our key.
So taking care of yourself first.
That's it. Good plan. I've heard that bit.
Yeah, good. That landed. Good.
Thank you so much,
well, thank
gorgeous.
You for having
it's
me.
Wonderful to see you again.
Thanks for your company. What did you think of this episode?
Well, tell us everything, Gorgi, with a cheeky review on Apple Pods. We'd love to know what you reckon about our topics and our guests. And us.
And we look forward to your company next time on She Wasn't Born Yesterday.
Hope 1032. Thanks for listening.